Love can build a life, but betrayal can tear it down. When forgiveness is a lie, revenge festers in silence. Tonight, we explore a man's journey through guilt, heartbreak, and a wound that cuts deeper than his own mistakes. My name is Eric, 45 years old, living in a cramped apartment in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a construction manager, or at least I was until my world collapsed. My life used to feel sturdy, married to Clara for 20 years, raising our daughter, Freya, who's 16 now. We had a house with a sprawling backyard, a treehouse Freya adored when she was younger, and a rhythm that felt like family. But that was before I realized the cracks in my marriage never healed, before I learned Clara never forgave me for my mistake years ago, before her revenge shattered me. Let's go back to the beginning. Clara and I met in our mid-20s at a neighborhood block party. She was witty, warm, with this smile that made you feel seen. We married 3 years later, built a life together. I worked long hours overseeing construction projects, while Clara taught high school literature. Freya came along, and for years, we were that picture-perfect family, laughing, together, solid. But I broke it. 10 years ago, I had an affair. It was short, reckless, a 6-week mistake with a coworker named Emily during a time when Clara and I were barely speaking. I ended it, confessed to Clara, and begged for her forgiveness. I spent years making it right, therapy, openness, whatever she needed. I thought we'd moved forward. I thought we were whole again. Looking back, I missed the signs. Clara's warmth faded. Her silences grew heavier. She'd linger at school, claiming grading or meetings. I trusted her, thought it was just her job. Freya was getting older, more independent. So I didn't question the distance. I was too busy trying to be the husband I should have been. But last year, it all fell apart. It started with a text from Clara's coworker, Lauren, someone I'd met at a school event. The message was blunt. Eric, I'm sorry, but you need to. No, Clara's been seeing her principal, Michael, for months. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe it. Lauren sent a screenshot of an email, Clara to Michael, familiar, intimate, like they were close. Payback feels better than I thought, she wrote. Payback. That word hit like a wrecking ball. I confronted Clara that night. Freya was at a friend's house, thank God. I showed her the screenshot, my voice trembling. She didn't flinch, she just stared at me, her eyes icy, and said, "You betrayed me first. Eric, don't act hurt." She admitted she'd been sleeping with Michael for a year. A year. While I was planning our 20th anniversary, she was with him. She called it her way of settling the score for my affair. I tried to reason. My mistake was a decade ago. I'd spent years atoning. But she shut me down. "You broke us," she said. "This is just justice." I felt like I was suffocating. The hypocrisy stung. I'd owned my failure, rebuilt my life to earn her trust, but she'd been nursing that hurt, letting it grow. She didn't want to heal, she wanted to wound me. I left the house, drove to a quiet park, and sat in my truck, staring into the dark. My chest ached like it was collapsing. I kept thinking about Freya, our home, the life we'd built, and how Clara's revenge wasn't just against me, it was against our family. I didn't sleep that night. I just replayed her words, her coldness, and wondered how I'd been so blind. The next few days were a haze. I checked into a motel, unable to face our house. I didn't tell Freya. I couldn't bear to shatter her world yet. I kept working, pouring my anger into my job, swinging hammers until my arms burned. But it didn't help. I'd check my phone, hoping for a message from Clara, some sign she regretted it. Nothing came. I was alone, carrying the weight of my old mistake and her new one. And the worst part? I still loved her. Even after her betrayal, I didn't know how to let go. The days after that confrontation with Clara felt like wading through mud. I checked into that motel in Raleigh, a cheap place off the highway with flickering lights and thin walls. Every night, I'd lie on the creaky bed, staring at the popcorn ceiling, replaying her words. You betrayed me first. Eric, don't act hurt." The way she said it, so calm, so sure, like she'd been waiting years to twist the knife. I'd spent a decade trying to make up for my affair with Emily, therapy, late-night apologies, giving Clara access to my phone, my emails, everything. I thought we'd rebuilt something stronger, but her affair with Michael, her principal, wasn't just a fling, it was deliberate, a year-long plan she called justice. That word burned. Justice. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like she wanted to break me. Work was all I had left, but even that was slipping. I'd been a good construction manager, keeping sites on schedule, joking with my crew. Now, I was a mess. I'd bark orders, forget blueprints, or just stare at the skyline, lost in thought. One afternoon, my foreman, Tom, pulled me aside after I chewed out a guy for a minor mistake. "Eric, you're not yourself," he said, his voice low. "You're scaring the guys. What's going on?" I wanted to tell him. My wife's been sleeping with her boss to get back at me for a mistake I made 10 years ago, but the words stuck in my throat. I mumbled something about family stress and promised to pull it together, but I couldn't. I was unraveling. The worst part was Freya. She was 16, caught up in her teenage world. Volleyball practice, friends, her phone. I hadn't told her about her mom's affair. How could I? She'd always seen us as a team, even after my screw-up years ago. I'd worked so hard to be a good dad, to make up for the pain I caused. But now, I was hiding in a motel, lying to her. One evening, I called her, needing to hear her voice. "Dad, why aren't you home?" she asked, her tone sharp, suspicious. I lied, said I was on a work trip for a big project. "You and Mom are acting so weird," she said. "What's going on?" I deflected, promised we'd talk soon, but my chest tightened. She wasn't a kid anymore. She could sense the cracks. I hung up, feeling like a coward. I didn't want to break her world, but I knew I couldn't keep this from her forever. I started digging, maybe because I needed proof, or maybe to hurt myself more. I still had access to our shared laptop from when I'd grabbed tax documents. Late one night, I logged in and found Clara's email. There they were, dozens of messages between her and Michael, going back a year. They weren't just work emails. She'd written things like, dash, "He'll never know how good this feels," and dash, "I deserve this after what he put me through." Michael's replies were smug. Dash, "You're right, he doesn't deserve you." My hand shook as I read. Each word was a punch, confirming she'd planned this, savored it. She wasn't just cheating, she was rewriting our history, making me the villain in a story she'd been scripting for years. I didn't confront her again. What was the point? She'd made her choice clear. Instead, I sat in that motel room, nursing a bottle of cheap whiskey I'd bought from a gas station. I wasn't a big drinker, but it dulled the edges, made the pain fuzzy for a few hours. I kept thinking about our life. Freya's 5th birthday when we got her that treehouse. The way Clara and I used to dance in the kitchen when we thought no one was watching. How had we gotten here? I'd betrayed her once, yes, but I'd spent years trying to fix it. She hadn't forgiven me, she'd just been waiting to strike back. And the worst part? I still loved her, even knowing what she'd done. I couldn't turn it off. I hated myself for it. But I missed her, missed us. I was stuck, drowning in guilt and her revenge, with no idea how to climb out. That motel room was starting to feel like a prison, with its peeling wallpaper and the hum of the highway outside my window. I'd been there for weeks, living out of a duffel bag, eating greasy takeout, and trying to make sense of Clara's betrayal. Her emails with Michael haunted me. Dash, "He'll never know how good this feels," she'd written, like my pain was her victory. I'd spent 10 years trying to atone for my affair with Emily, thinking we'd rebuilt something real, but Clara had been holding onto that hurt, turning it into a weapon. Her affair wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated act of revenge, and it left me questioning everything. Our marriage, my worth, even my place in Freya's life. I was falling apart, and it was showing at work. I was a ghost, barely holding it together. My crew noticed. Guys I'd worked with for years started giving me side glances. One morning, I showed up late, my shirt wrinkled, my eyes bloodshot from another night with that whiskey bottle. Tom, my foreman, cornered me again. "Eric, you're killing yourself," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "Take a few days, figure it out." I nodded, but I didn't know how to figure it out. My life was a pile of rubble, and I didn't have the tools to rebuild. I took the days off, but instead of resting, I drove aimlessly around Raleigh, passing coffee shops where Clara and I used to sit, parks where Freya played as a kid. Every corner held a memory, and every memory hurt. Freya was my biggest worry. She was 16, smart, perceptive, and I knew she could feel the tension. I'd been dodging her questions, sticking to vague lies about work trips, but she wasn't buying it. One evening, I met her at a diner near her school. She slid into the booth, her volleyball bag slung over her shoulder, and fixed me with a look that was too grown up for her age. "Dad, what's wrong with you?" "And Mom?" she asked, picking at her fries. I froze. I wanted to protect her, to keep her from the mess Clara and I had made. "It's just adult stuff," I said, hating how weak it sounded. Her eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me, Dad. I'm not a kid." I promised we'd talk soon, but I left that diner feeling like I'd failed her again. I couldn't keep her in the dark much longer, but the thought of telling her about Clara's affair, about my own mistakes, made me sick. I started obsessing over those emails, reading them over and over, like picking at a scab. There was one from Michael that gutted me. "Dash, you're too good for him. Clara, he doesn't see you like I do." It wasn't just about their affair, it was the way they talked about me, like I was nothing. I wondered how long Clara had felt that way. Had she hated me since my affair? Had every smile, every "I love you" been a lie? I tried calling her, hoping for something, an apology, an explanation, anything. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail, my voice cracking. "Clara, can we just talk? Please." No response. I even drove by the house one night, saw her car in the driveway, and sat there like an idiot, hoping she'd come out. She didn't. The whiskey wasn't helping anymore. One night, I drank too much, ended up hunched over the motel toilet, heaving. I looked in the mirror afterward, pale, unshaven, a stranger. I thought about Freya, about how I'd promised to be there for her, and here I was, falling apart. I couldn't keep doing this. The next morning, I called a therapist I'd seen years ago after my affair. I didn't know if it would help, but I needed something to hold on to. I was drowning in Clara's revenge, in my own guilt. And I didn't know how to swim, but for Freya, I had to try. I still loved Clara, God help me, but I was starting to see that love wasn't enough, not when it was built on a foundation of pain. Sitting in that therapist's office felt like stepping back in time. Dr. Harris hadn't changed much. Same gray sweater, same calm voice asking, "So, Eric, what brings you here?" I didn't know where to start. The words spilled out messy, raw. Clara's affair with Michael, her payback for my betrayal a decade ago, the emails that cut deeper than I could explain. I told him about the motel, the whiskey, the way I was failing Freya by dodging the truth. He listened, nodding, jotting notes, and when I finished, he said, "You're carrying both your guilt and her anger. That's a heavy load." Heavy didn't even cover it. It felt like I was buried under it. Therapy wasn't a magic fix. I went once a week, forcing myself to show up even when I wanted to hide. Dr. Harris made me talk about my affair with Emily, how I justified it back then. Clara and I were fighting. I felt neglected. Stupid excuses. I'd owned it. Worked to rebuild trust. But Clara's revenge showed me she'd never let it go. She didn't forgive you, Dr. Harris said. She buried her pain, and now it's surfaced in a way that's hurting you both. I hated how right he was. I thought we were past it, but Clara had been keeping score, and her affair was the final tally. I started trying to rebuild. Small steps. I cut back on the whiskey, switched to coffee, though I still couldn't sleep. I rented a tiny apartment in Raleigh. Nothing fancy, just a place to call mine. It had a small balcony where I'd sit at night, staring at the city lights, thinking about Freya. I still hadn't told her the truth, but I couldn't avoid her forever. One Saturday, I picked her up for lunch at her favorite taco place. She was quieter than usual, her phone untouched, which wasn't like her. "Dad," she said finally, "Mom's been weird too. She's always on her phone, smiling at it. Is she seeing someone?" My heart stopped. I wanted to protect her, but she was too smart to fool. "We're going through some stuff," I said. "Careful, I'll tell you more soon, I promise." She nodded, but her eyes were hurt, like she knew I was holding back. Work was still a struggle. I went back after my days off, tried to focus, but my heart wasn't in it. Tom gave me smaller projects, probably to keep me from screwing up anything big. One day, I overheard a coworker talking about his wife's promotion. How proud he was. It stung, remembering when I bragged about Clara's Teacher of the Year award. I wondered if Michael had been at that ceremony, clapping for her, already plotting. The thought made me sick. I started avoiding the house altogether. Couldn't handle driving by and seeing Clara's car, or worse, Michael's. I tried reaching out to Clara again, not because I thought we could fix things, but because I needed closure. I sent a text. Can we talk? For Freya's sake. She replied hours later. Not now. Eric, I need space. Space. She'd had a year of space with Michael while I was planning our anniversary. I didn't push, but her silence felt like another rejection. I started wondering about the logistics. Had she been with him at school? In our house? The questions ate at me, but I didn't have the courage to ask. Dr. Harris pushed me to focus on myself, not Clara. You can't control her choices, he said. You can only control how you respond. So I tried. I started running in the mornings, not far, just enough to feel my lungs burn. I called Freya more, even if it was just to hear about her day. But every step forward felt like dragging a chain. Clara's betrayal wasn't just about her and Michael. It was about the life we'd lost, the trust one thought we'd rebuilt. I kept seeing her face, that cold stare when she said, "You broke us." Maybe I had, but she'd finished the job. I was still here, though. For Freya, for myself, I had to keep going, even if I didn't know where I was headed. Settling into that small apartment in Raleigh felt like a step, but not toward anything good, just away from the motel's despair. The place was bare, just a couch, a bed, and a folding table, but it was mine. I'd sit on the balcony at night, sipping coffee, trying to piece together who I was without Clara. Therapy with Dr. Harris was helping. Slowly, he kept pushing me to face my guilt, to stop letting Clara's affair define me. You made a mistake, Eric, he'd say, but you're not that mistake. I wanted to believe him, but when I closed my eyes, I saw her emails to Michael, her words about deserving better, and it felt like I was nothing. Freya was the only thing keeping me grounded. I started seeing her more, picking her up for dinners or driving her to volleyball practice. She was sharp, picking up on my mood even when I tried to hide it. One evening, as we grabbed burgers, she looked at me over her milkshake and said, "Dad, you're sad all the time. Is it because of Mom?" I nearly choked. I've been so careful, but kids see everything. I took a deep breath, knowing I couldn't lie anymore. Your mom and I are having a hard time, I said. We're not together right now. Her face fell, but she nodded, like she'd suspected it. Is it because of someone else? She asked, her voice small. I couldn't tell her about Michael, not yet. It's complicated, I said, but I love you, and that won't change. She hugged me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. Work was still a mess. I was back on regular projects, but my heart wasn't in it. I'd catch myself staring at blueprints, my mind wandering to Clara. I wondered what she was doing, if she was still with Michael, if she ever thought about me. One day, I bumped into Lauren, Clara's coworker who'd tipped me off, at a coffee shop near the school. She looked uncomfortable but asked how I was. Not great, I admitted. She hesitated, then said, Clara's still seeing him. I thought you should know. It wasn't new information, but it still hurt, like a wound reopening. I thanked her and left, my coffee cold in my hand. I started noticing changes in myself. I wasn't drinking as much, but I was angry at Clara, at myself, at the life we'd lost. Dr. Harris said anger was part of grieving, but it felt like more than that. It was like Clara's revenge had taken the man I was and left a husk. I tried channeling it, running longer in the mornings, pushing myself until my legs gave out. It helped, a little. I also started writing letters to Clara, not to send, just to get the words out. I wrote about my affair, how sorry I was, but also about her betrayal, how it felt to be judged for a mistake I'd spent years fixing. I'd crumple them up, but the act of writing kept me from drowning. I saw Clara once, by chance, at a grocery store. She was in the produce aisle, picking out apples, looking like the woman I'd loved for 20 years. I froze, my cart half full, my heart pounding. She saw me, and for a second, her face softened, like she might say something. Then she turned away, walked to another aisle. I stood there, feeling like a ghost. I wanted to scream, to ask why she'd done this, but I just left my cart and walked out. That night, I called Dr. Harris's emergency line. Something I'd never done. I don't know how to move on, I said, my voice breaking. He talked me through it, reminded me I was more than my marriage, more than my mistakes. But as I hung up, I wasn't sure I believed him. Freya was my reason to keep going. But Clara's shadow was still there, and I didn't know how to escape it. Living in that Raleigh apartment was starting to feel less like a temporary fix and more like my new reality. The balcony became my refuge. where I'd sit with my coffee, watching the city wake up, trying to find some kind of peace. Therapy with Dr. Harris was chipping away at the weight I carried, but it was slow, like digging through concrete. He kept saying I needed to let go of Clara's betrayal, to stop letting it define me. But how do you let go of 20 years? Her affair with Michael wasn't just a wound. It was a rewrite of our entire history. Those emails, her calling it payback, made me question every moment I thought we'd been happy. Had she been planning this since my affair with Emily? Had she ever loved me after that? Freya was my lifeline. I started making a point to see her every weekend. Even if it was just for a movie or a walk in the park, she was opening up more, but I could tell she was hurting. One Saturday, as we sat on a bench eating ice cream, she looked at me with those big, serious eyes and said, "Dad, I heard Mom talking to someone on the phone. She called him Michael. Is that why you left?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't wanted her to find out this way, but she deserved the truth, or at least part of it. "Your mom and I have some problems," I said carefully. "She's been seeing someone, and it's complicated, but it's not your fault, Freya." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and leaned against me. I held her, feeling like I'd failed her as a father, but also knowing I had to be strong for her now. Work was getting a little easier. Tom had been patient, giving me smaller jobs to ease me back in. I started focusing, actually talking to the crew again, even cracking a joke one day that got a laugh. It felt foreign, like I was remembering how to be human. But then I'd go home to that empty apartment, and the loneliness would hit. I'd think about Clara, wonder if she was with Michael, if she was happy. I stopped checking her emails. I deleted my access to our shared account, but the memories of what I'd read were enough to keep me up at night. I started painting the apartment, just to keep my hands busy, to make it feel like mine. I chose blue, Freya's favorite color, hoping she'd visit soon. I finally got Clara to talk, sort of. I texted her, asking to meet for Freya's sake. She agreed, reluctantly, to coffee at a neutral spot downtown. When I saw her, my heart ached. She looked tired, but still beautiful, like the Clara I'd fallen for. We sat across from each other, silent at first. "What do you want, Eric?" she asked, her voice flat. I told her I wanted to figure out how to co-parent. To keep things stable for Freya. She nodded. But then I couldn't help myself. I asked about Michael. Her face hardened. "It's none of your business anymore," she said. "You lost that right when you cheated." I wanted to argue, to point out her year-long affair, but I bit my tongue. For Freya, I had to keep it civil. We agreed on a schedule for Freya, but as I left, I felt emptier than before. She wasn't sorry, and that hurt more than I expected. Dr. Harris kept pushing me to rebuild my identity outside of Clara. I started small, joined a running group in Raleigh, just a few guys who met at dawn. It wasn't much, but the rhythm of my feet on the pavement, the chatter about nothing important, made me feel less alone. I also started cooking again, simple stuff like chili or pancakes, things Freya liked when she was little. I was trying to find myself, but every step felt like walking through her betrayal. I still loved her, and I hated that. I did, but for Freya, for the man I wanted to be, I kept moving forward, one shaky step at a time. The apartment was starting to feel like home, or at least a place I could exist without falling apart. I'd hung a few photos of Freya on the walls, ones from when she was little, her in a soccer uniform, grinning with missing teeth, or us at the beach. Clara's arm around me in the background. I kept those up, even though seeing Clara's face stung. Therapy with Dr. Harris was helping me untangle the mess in my head, but it wasn't linear. Some days, I felt like I was making progress, like I could breathe without thinking of Clara's affair with Michael. Other days, I'd wake up angry, her words, "Dash, you broke us," ringing in my ears. I'd broken us, sure, but she'd burned to pieces. Freya was my anchor. Our weekends together were the highlight of my week. I'd take her to the Raleigh Farmers Market, or we'd watch old sci-fi movies, laughing at the cheesy effects. But she was struggling too. One night, as we made spaghetti in my tiny kitchen, she said, "Mom's different, Dad. She's always distracted, like she's not really there." I knew she meant Michael, but I didn't push. Instead, I told her she could always talk to me, no matter what. Later, she curled up on the couch, fell asleep watching a movie, and I watched her. wondering how I'd let our family fracture like this. I vowed to be better, to show up for her, even if Clara and I were done. Work was stabilizing. I was back on bigger projects, leading a crew on a new office building. I started connecting with the guys again, sharing coffee during breaks, listening to their stories. One guy, Javier, invited me to a barbecue at his place. I went, mostly to avoid another night alone. It was good kids running around, music, ribs on the grill. For a few hours, I felt normal, like I could be part of the world again. But when I got home, the silence hit, and I thought of Clara. I wondered if she was at similar gatherings with Michael, if she'd moved on completely. I didn't want to care, but I did. I hadn't seen Clara since our coffee meeting, but we texted about Freya's schedule, short, business-like messages. I wanted to ask about Michael if it was serious, but I stopped myself. Dr. Harris said I was seeking validation from her, trying to find worth in her choices. Your value isn't in her, he said. It's in you and Freya, in the life you're building. I tried to believe that. I started volunteering at a community center, helping with their construction projects. It wasn't much, fixing shelves, painting walls, but it gave me purpose. I'd see kids Freya's age there, and it made me think about how to be a better dad. One day, Freya called me in tears. Mom and I fought, she said. She's moving in with Michael. My heart sank. I'd suspected it, but hearing it was different. I drove to pick Freya up, found her sitting on the curb outside Clara's house, her face puffy. She didn't want to talk much, just said she felt like Clara didn't care about her anymore. I held her, told her she was enough, that I'd always be there. Driving back to my place, I was furious, not just at Clara, but at myself for letting this hurt Freya. I knew I had to talk to Clara, not for me, but for our daughter. I texted her. Freya's upset. We need to figure this out for her. She didn't reply that night, and I sat on my balcony, staring at the stars, feeling the weight of it all. I was trying to move forward, to be the father Freya needed, but Clara's choices kept pulling me back. I didn't know if I'd ever be free of her, but I knew I had to keep fighting for Freya, for the man I was still trying to become. Freya's tears that night broke something in me, but they also lit a fire. I couldn't let Clara's choices keep hurting our daughter. My apartment, with its blue walls and Freya's photos, was my sanctuary now, a place where I was trying to rebuild. Therapy with Dr. Harris had given me tools, ways to manage the anger, the guilt, the love I still felt for Clara despite everything. But hearing Freya say Clara was moving in with Michael made it real in a way I hadn't faced. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Freya, giving her the stability I'd failed to provide when my affair with Emily cracked our family a decade ago. I finally got Clara to meet me again, this time at a park near Freya's school. I wanted neutral ground, somewhere we could talk without Freya overhearing. She showed up looking worn, her eyes avoiding mine. What do you want, Eric? She asked, arms crossed. I kept my voice steady. For Freya's sake. Freya's hurting, I said. She knows about Michael, and she feels like you're choosing him over her. Clara flinched, but her jaw tightened. I'm not abandoning her, she said. I'm just living my life. I wanted to scream. Living her life meant tearing ours apart, but I focused on Freya. We agreed she'd spend more time with me, that we'd both try to shield her from the mess. As Clara walked away, I felt a strange relief, not closure, but a step toward letting go. Freya started staying at my place more, her duffel bag of clothes a permanent fixture in my spare room. We fell into a routine, breakfast together, me driving her to school, her doing homework at my kitchen table. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. She opened up about Clara, how she felt invisible when Michael was around. Mom's different with him, she said one night, her voice small, like she's trying to be someone else. I listened, held her when she cried, and promised I'd always be her constant. It was the one promise I knew I could keep. Work was better. I was leading projects again, earning back the crew's respect. Javier's barbecue had opened a door, and I started hanging out with some of the guys outside work. Nothing big, just beers or a game on TV. It felt good to laugh, to feel like I belonged somewhere. I kept volunteering at the community center, too, teaching kids how to use tools. Watching their faces light up when they built something, it reminded me of Freya, of the dad I wanted to be. Dr. Harris said I was finding purpose, and for the first time, I believed him. Clara and I settled into a tense co-parenting rhythm. We didn't talk about Michael, and I stopped asking. I heard through Lauren that they were serious, that Clara had moved into his place. It hurt, but not like before. The pain was duller now, like a bruise fading. I still thought about our life, dancing in the kitchen, building that treehouse for Freya, but I was starting to see those memories as part of a past, not a future. I didn't love Clara less, but I was learning to love myself more, too. See myself as more than the man who'd failed her, or the man she'd punished. One night, Freya and I were on the balcony, eating pizza, looking at the Raleigh skyline. She leaned against me and said, "Dad, I'm glad you're here." My throat tightened. I wasn't whole yet. Maybe I'd never be, but I was here for her, for me. Clara's revenge had broken my spirit, but I was picking up the pieces, building something new. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine, and I was starting to believe I could live it.